Early in 1963, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference led a movement known as the Birmingham Campaign to draw national attention to the struggle of local black leaders to desegregate public facilities in Birmingham, Alabama, widely considered to be one of the most segregated cities in the United States. And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemichistory.com. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by buying me coffee, my Patreon page in the description below. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and support the YouTube channel. But without further ado, let's get started.
This holiday, instead of giving them something nice, why not gift them somewhere nice? During the IHG Hotels and Resorts Cyber Sale, you can do just that and save. Shopping is easy in the IHG One Rewards app, where you'll save 20% on travel across 6,000 plus global destinations. And if you want to gift yourself somewhere nice, go ahead. You'll earn more and save more during the cyber sale. Check out all the deals at ihg.com/cybersale. Terms apply.
The situation in the 1960s Birmingham was marked by stark racial segregation and intense racial violence. The racially motivated bombings were so widespread that one neighborhood was called Dynamite Hill. These actions were so frequent and went largely unaddressed by authorities, creating an environment of hostility and fear. And amidst this chaos was stringent Jim Crow laws. With a population of 350,000, 60% of them are white and about 40% black, inequalities permeated every aspect of life. Laws prohibiting African Americans from holding jobs in the public sector, limiting their employment to low-skilled labor for far lower wages than their white counterparts. Additionally, faced segregation in all public and commercial facilities. An imbalance was so evident with voting rights that only 10% of the black population was registered to vote by 1960. This economic exploitation and social marginalization led to systemic racial disparity and further widening the chasm of societal differences in Alabama. At the epicenter of the strict racial hierarchy was Eugene Bull Connor, who was the Commissioner of Public Safety in Birmingham. Connor's rigid approach to maintaining the status quo and even going so far as blaming black citizens for the bombings in the cities. He was unwavering in his refusal to accept desegregation and led to the formation of a group of moderate citizens known as the Citizens for Progress. Despite Connor's resistance, with the backing of the Chamber of Commerce and other white professionals, they led the defeat of Connor in the 1962 mayoral race, leading to the election of Albert Boutwell. However, refusing to admit defeat, Connor and his colleagues at the City Commission rejected Boutwell's authority and argued that their term did not expire until 1965. Temporarily, Birmingham was the home of 2 city governments, both seeking to conduct business and fostering a politically charged climate that would be significant in the Birmingham Campaign. This turbulent environment was the backdrop for the Birmingham Campaign, aimed at dismantling segregation through nonviolent protests. The campaign was originally named Project C for confrontation, partnering with the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights led by Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. Together, they aimed to challenge desegregation laws and banking on the power of nonviolent resistance to shift attention to the rampant racial disparity. The Birmingham Campaign was modeled after the Montgomery bus boycott, and it was heavily reliant on economic pressure against businesses. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference believed that this would be more impactful than pressuring politicians. The boycott was also bolstered because it was set right before Easter in 1963. Pastors motivated their congregations by asking them to refuse to patronize segregation-supporting businesses in Montgomery's downtown district. Ensuing confrontations led to some stores removing their discriminatory signs. However, such progress was met with threats of business licenses being revoked by city officials. Dr. King, along with other officials, led lectures on nonviolence, gathered local volunteers for protests. The collective assembly was involved in mass meetings, sit-ins at lunch counters and libraries, kneel-ins at churches, and a march on City Hall and voter registration drives at the county courthouse. Birmingham municipal government obtained a court injunction against the protests April 10, 1963, which was deliberately violated by campaigners. Their violations led to the arrest of Martin Luther King on Good Friday, and his arrest sparked national attention. Supporters of Dr. King sent telegrams to the White House expressing their concerns. Although he could be released at any time if he made bail, the campaign organizers chose not to in order to call attention to the conditions in Birmingham. After 24 hours, King was allowed to see attorneys from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. But when Coretta did not hear from her husband, she called President Kennedy, and he in turn called Dr. King. While in confinement, he wrote notes in the margins of a smuggled newspaper and a legal pad. This will later be known as the letter from the Birmingham jail, and it responded to moderate clergymen who accused him of agitating the residents of Birmingham and not giving the mayor a chance to make changes. The letter became instrumental in the fight for civil rights, but critics would suggest that the letter from Birmingham jail was pre-planned, as though all of his actions taken by King and his colleagues. The arrests brought national attention, including that of corporate officers of the stores in downtown Birmingham. After the arrest, their profits would decline, and pressure was put on the Kennedy administration to intervene. King would be freed on bail April 20th, 1963. Despite initial success of the campaign, by May of 1963, the campaign was faltering due to fear of adults losing their employment and facing incarceration. Seeing this, James Bevel, who is a veteran to student protests, devised a controversial tactic to use children in the movement. Despite the hesitation of King, Bevel argued that incarceration of children would not disrupt the family's economy, and also that children would bring about a dramatic change in the movement that they've been yearning for. Drawing upon schools as a base of recruitment, workshops were held to teach students about the philosophy of nonviolence and enable them to face their fears, most notably police dogs in jail. On May 2nd, a pivotal movement happened in the campaign when a 7th grade student by the name of Gwendolyn Sanders led a massive walkout at Parker High School. The protest was in response to the principal's attempt to keep them confined within the school premises. Children from different age groups joined in and marched towards downtown, singing hymns such as "We Shall Overcome." This act of defiance led to the arrest of over 600 students and ignited a spark that would soon engulf the nation's consciousness. Reactions to the initiative, especially the use of children, were decidedly mixed. Notable personalities such as the mayor of Birmingham, Boutwell's Attorney General Robert Kennedy, and even Malcolm X were critical of the decision. Malcolm X would be quoted as stating that real men don't put their children on the firing line. However, this did not deter the movement, and the children were resilient and remained unbroken. The following day saw considerable escalation of force from the police under the direction of Eugene Bull Connor. High-pressure hoses, police dogs, and clubs were used to quell the demonstrations, leading to a further influx of arrested protesters that filled their makeshift jails. These horrific scenes of brutality against defenseless children shook the world and began to sway public opinion. By May 6th, the protests were in full swing, and the distressing images were circulating in the media, intensifying international outrage and putting significant pressure on the United States government. The unrestricted broadcast of the Birmingham Campaign and, of course, the Children's Crusade drew international attention to the civil rights movement. People who used to be indifferent or even supportive of the racial divide were shaken by what they saw and wanted change. By May 7th, the situation was continuing to escalate. The Birmingham Chamber of Commerce, representing local businesses, asked for the protest to stop. However, at the same time, the NAACP was encouraging people in 100 cities across America to march in support. That day, another 1,000 people would be arrested. Finally, the Attorney General's office landed in Birmingham to strike a deal with local business leaders and Black citizens. The business leaders wanted an end to the protests. So, on May 8th, 1963, the protests stopped and a compromise was reached. There was a commitment to remove segregation from public places and to hire more Black people into retail positions. In the aftermath, despite the turbulence and violence of the struggle, the Birmingham Campaign was a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. By the middle of the summer of 1963, the city's desegregation laws had largely been reversed, saw considerable advancement in racial parity within the city. Numerous establishments had desegregated lunch counters. Public spaces such as parks and golf courses had become accessible to both Black and white citizens, and Major Boutwell had established an interracial committee for the city's future planning. These developments seemed to symbolize a beacon of optimism. However, not all responses to the campaign were positive. Criticism directed at King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference criticized King's prematurely concluding the campaign and settling for ambiguous commitments and failing to secure tangible, wide-reaching change necessary in Birmingham. Post-campaign analysis revealed that it was a glaring lack of African-American representation in key public roles such as law enforcement, firefighters, and clerks. Furthermore, the Birmingham Bar Association denial of membership of Black attorneys underscored the non-uniformity of advancement across sectors. Additionally, the campaign was not without violence, prominently exemplified by the events that unfolded on May 11th with an explosion that detonated at the Gaston Motel, which was a temporary residence for Martin Luther King Jr. Concurrently, another explosion was set off at the house of A.D. King, which was Martin Luther King's brother. When police arrived at the scene, they faced severe hostility from angry Black folks, which sparked a widespread riot involving thousands of enraged citizens. Buildings were incinerated, and at least one individual was stabbed during the riot. In the end, despite vehement objections from Alabama Governor George Wallace, President Kennedy would resolve the riot by dispatching 3,000 federal soldiers to Birmingham. Reputationally, the happenings in Birmingham further elevated King's hero status and propelled him to the center of the civil rights movement. Admiration and respect for King surged, and his bravery and persistence and commitment to the cause were thrown into sharp focus. Similarly, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference grew in popularity and created a domino effect in the civil rights movement in other parts of the Southern United States. In essence, the Birmingham Campaign was a complex weave of advancement, defiance, and evolution. Its reverberations were felt nationwide, influencing discourse in racial equality and directing the course of the civil rights movement. Despite the violence and the criticism that were encountered during the campaign, figures like Martin Luther King emerged even stronger, laying the groundwork for ongoing actions to achieve racial equality. Thank you. This has been One Mic Black History. I'm your host, Country Boy. If you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at onemichistory.com. I also like to support the channel. You do something, buy me coffee, Patreon page in the description below. Give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and support the YouTube channel. Peace.